Hey everybody on YouTube, it's me, the Student Witch, and so I just got back from having a consultation with an immigration lawyer, and I figured some of you might be interested with hearing some updates as far as my husband's situation goes. I feel so much better about this situation. It's Valentine's Day today. I don't know when I'll have time to upload this, but this has been one of the better Valentine's Days I've ever had, because even though my husband and I are too poor to give each other gifts, like seriously, I have $15 in my bank account right now. Tomorrow's payday though. But better than any box of chocolates or jewelry or perfume, I have some peace of mind now, knowing what to expect as far as his immigration situation goes. So, just really quickly, because it's very complicated, there are different types of visas, right? And I really do think that US citizens, especially or particularly citizens who just were born into citizenship, we really need to learn about the immigration system. I think that would be a great way to develop more empathy and sympathy with immigrants and people who come here and have to work through or around the system, because it's so fucking complicated, you guys. There's F1, H1, H2, NB, J-1, J2, like L1, O1 visas. There's all sorts of different types of visas, and each visa has about 20 different billion requirements and different types within that type of visa. It's ridiculous. So my husband has a J-1 visa. He came to the US with a Fulbright scholarship. His home country, Chile, and the United States funded that scholarship, which was the first 4 years of his PhD program. So because of that, he cannot apply for a waiver, because the J-1 visa, in general, it's an exchange visa. It's a student/scholar exchange visa, and it comes with a 2-year home residency requirement. And basically what that means is, before you are ever allowed to apply for a green card or permanent residency here, you have to go back to your home country and live there for 2 years. It does not have to be consecutive 2 years, it can be cumulative. You know, it can be 6 months here, 3 months there, you know, added up over time. But because he came here on a Fulbright, and because the Chilean government and the US government funded his Fulbright scholarship, it's next to impossible to get out of that 2-year requirement. And that's what has, that in addition to the current political situation, that's what we are freaking out about, is trying to figure out how to deal with that. Because, you know, I'm about halfway through my PhD. Next year I'll be writing my dissertation, and like trying to time it out to where it works well for both of us, because basically when you're in academia, when you're a student, when you're a PhD student, you don't have much of a timeline. Like, as long as you're still a student, it's okay. But if you graduate and then you're unemployed for a really long time, that looks really bad on your resume, basically. So, like, we don't want to go live in Chile when I'm done or about to be done with my PhD, because it would be kind of hard for me to get a job down there, and once I graduate, that clock starts ticking. So we're trying to time it to where, if we're going to be forced to live in Chile for a year, year and a half, couple years, we're going to try to time it to where it happens when I'm still a student. Now, this will have an impact on my husband, on his job prospects here in the U.S. because he does want to live in the U.S. He definitely wants permanent residency, and he's even open to citizenship if it means like not having to deal with this bullshit immigration shit anymore. So it might impact him in the sense that like he's going to be forced to be out of the US academic job market for 2 years, which makes me worried about like his prospects for getting a job here once we come back in. But to a certain degree, that's unavoidable. So at the very least, we just need him to get teaching experience here in the US. Because the first 4 years of his PhD were funded by his Fulbright, and then the last few years have been funded not through a teaching assistantship, but through a research assistantship. He doesn't have teaching experience in the US. He has 4 years of teaching experience at the high school and university level in Chile, but his lack of teaching experience in the US doesn't help his resume or CV look good, unfortunately. So if he can just get a job now, even as a 1-year lecturer position, if he can get teaching experience for just a year, year and a half now, and then we go to Chile when I'm writing my dissertation. This is me writing, that's what I do. That's my signal. That would be like the best possible way that we could time it. So he can apply, well, right now he's applying for jobs. He is qualified for up to 36-month extension of his current visa. And after talking to the lawyer, it shouldn't be a problem as long as he gets that job application or job contract. So he'll get 18 months at first, and then after 18 months he'll apply again as long as he still has employment, and he can get up to 36 months or 3 years. So that's very good news, knowing that it's a very real possibility. It's not like trying to get a waiver for the 2-year requirement, which, like I said earlier, is next to impossible. So that's a relief. I mean, everything hinges on the fact, on whether or not he gets a job, because if he doesn't get a job, he has to go back to Chile, no matter what. But I'm hopeful that he will get a job. He's applied to, probably somewhere around 25 or 30 different universities all across the country. Universities and liberal arts colleges and everything in between. So I'm hopeful about that. And it's just good to know that there's a very, very real possibility that things will work out. And after talking to the lawyer, we are more informed about what to expect. And now we can finally, we have answers, and we can finally start planning our lives long term, we know we have to go live in Chile for a good chunk of time. That's unavoidable, so now we can plan for that, Now, once we take care of the 2-year requirement in Chile, since by that point we will have been married for probably 5 or 6 years, because this May we celebrate our 3rd wedding anniversary. So after, hopefully, he works here and then we go live in Chile, it'll be 6 years, maybe even 7. So with that good chunk of time of us legally being married and everything, his re-entry into the country should be a fairly easy, smooth process. If he re-enters the country with a work visa, with a work contract, that will be a very quick process, because more or less, as soon as he gets back into the country, if he has a work visa and a work contract waiting for him here, he can quickly switch over to a green card. However, if he doesn't have a work contract waiting for him here, I can still get him back in, but it's just a longer process that could take 1 or 2 years. Now, the good news about that is, even if we have to do that longer process, we can go ahead and start the paperwork and start that process while we're still in Chile. So if we have to live in Chile for 2 years and we're afraid that it might take a year for me to get him back in because I'm his legal relative, we can go ahead and start that process a year into our stay in Chile, if that makes sense. So that's good news as well, because I was under the impression that I had to be inside the US to do that, which would force us to be apart. No, I can be in Chile. I can be anywhere in the world as long as I maintain my US domicile status. As long as I show and prove that I intend on living in the US for a while and all that shit, I can go ahead and start to request his re-entry, a year in advance if we have to. And then once he gets into the country, probably on some sort of immigrant visa, we can quickly switch him over to a green card. And once he's on a green card for 3 years, as long as for the majority of those 3 years he's in the US, after those 3 years, we can go ahead and start the citizenship process, which is other good news, because I thought that the citizenship process would take like for fucking ever. And it does if you're not married to a US citizen, but since he's married to me, after he's on that green card for 3 years, we can go ahead and start, that process. Which is really good news. And I think he's open. I don't really care where he's a citizen at, as long as we're together. But I think he's interested in becoming a citizen because, for one thing, he wants to vote, because the US being a global power, if the US is going to go around and fuck shit up in other countries, people from those other countries should at least have a say. And Chile, at one point, was one of those countries that the US meddled in, so he wants to be able to vote. But also, once he's a citizen, then we don't have to deal with this bullshit anymore. So that's really good news. And if we have children in Chile, we shouldn't have a problem getting US citizenship for them, even if their father isn't a citizen at that time, of course. But me being a citizen, it shouldn't be a problem. Because I had a question about that, because I was born abroad. I was born in Germany, but I was born a US citizen to citizen parents on a US Army base in West Germany at that time, which is why I have a piece of the Berlin Wall on my altar, because we were there when that wall came down and all that shit. So I heard that it could be an issue because my birth certificate says something like US citizen or US national born abroad, but the only reason that would become an issue is if I spent most of my life living outside the US, which isn't true, because I was born at the end of '87. We moved to Florida in 1990, and I've been living permanently in the US since then. So that's not an issue. So it shouldn't be an issue for us to have children in Chile and make sure that those children or child has US citizenship. Because that was something we were worried about too, because having one family member deal with immigration bullshit is enough, but then on top of that, to have more family members, my husband and I were relatively privileged because he doesn't come from any of the countries in the Muslim ban. He's not Mexican, because there's lots of racism toward that. He's light-skinned, And Chile, being the rising economic power that it is in South America, you know, there shouldn't be any issues. Like, we don't have to worry about any sort of ban or anything. No one's going to ban Chileans from entering the US, you know. So we are privileged in that sense, but still, it's a pain in the ass. It's really a pain in the ass. And it's really frustrating when people who are citizens, who know nothing of the immigration system and how hard it is, judge immigrants and discriminate against them. It's really fucking frustrating. So anyway, I'm not going to go down that route, down that rant. I just figured I would record this because it's all fresh in my mind, because I just got back from the consultation. And I thought I'd share this good news with y'all. So there's a really, really good possibility that we won't be separated. And now we have some answers and we know how to, like, plan the next 5 or 6 years of our lives together. So that's really good. Okay. Happy Valentine's Day. Again, I probably won't get this uploaded until after Valentine's Day, but I hope everybody had a self-love, you know, self-appreciation Valentine's Day. You know, love yourself, love your partner if you have one. Treat yourself to, you know, wine and chocolate and all that fun stuff, and sex if you can. And I'll talk to you guys again soon. Many blessings. Bye.